Alright, you already know who it is. King Fortune, we back up in here once again. So today we're going to be speaking about why the path of soul excellence is only for the chosen few. So let's get pretty technical, right? So first and foremost, a way to dig into this is we've all heard the phrase of being cut from a certain cloth, or hopefully you've heard that phrase, being cut from a certain cloth. But what does that mean? When you hear the phrase of being cut from a certain cloth, that means you still have a connection to the soul essence, so that all of the fabrications that go on amongst you, your soul essence serves as a shield to protect you from veering off in the wrong direction, because it's easy to be, misled, but it's hard to stay on point because there's various distractions in the world. We all have to deal with it on a daily basis, right? So every day we have to make the conscious decision to walk a certain path. But what path is that which we are walking? Let's get into it. So first and foremost, it takes a certain type of awareness, right? The awareness is when we understand that we are the microcosm, right? Which we should all know by now. We are the center of the universe. We are the universe in bodily or human form. So everything within the universe is contained within us, right? We should all know that. However, it takes a certain type of mind to apply that science in real time on a daily basis, because that's the only way you're really going to be able to shield yourself from all of the outside influences. Because every day there will be a challenge. Every day there will be a mystery to discover. Every day you have to make the conscious decision to walk in a certain light. So therefore, the first thing is, if you don't have enough endurance to walk a certain path on a daily basis, day in, day out, every day, every week, every month, every year, because new distractions are popping up every day, whether it's online, whether it's offline. There's always a reason to spend your money on things you don't need. There's always a reason to deal with people you don't need to deal with. There's always a reason to have conversations that you don't need to have. There's always a reason to watch things that you don't need to watch, to read things that you don't need to read, right? And that's in abundance. That's 99% of the world. A bunch of things that you really don't need in your life for real, and it really doesn't get you any closer to the soul essence. So the second thing is, when you have the knowledge of self, meaning you know who you are, when you have this knowledge, you can say this makes you a royal being, not because of who you are, but because of the path you chose to walk. What makes a person royal or special, it's not necessarily because they were born into a certain family. It's because of the lifestyle that they choose to walk every single day, not a choice that they made. Then they left the path, but the choice that they make on a daily basis. Because it's like you're going against the societal norms. And when you are going against the societal norms, it's like you're going against gravity. But if you have enough endurance and enough strength to go against gravity, it actually makes you stronger in the long run, instead of weakening you because you are falling victim to your desires and your needs and so on and so forth. So if you have enough endurance to walk against the grain, it actually gives you a certain amount of strength that everyone else just simply doesn't have. Why? Because they're not going against the grain. And when you are, it builds you up to the level of a warrior, right? And not just a warrior that's willing to hold the shield and the sword, but a warrior in mind. See, warfare is strictly mental. We learn that when we read the book, The Art of War. War is mental. When you know yourself and you know your enemy, you will be victorious. But if you don't know yourself and know your enemy, you will fail, right? In both ways. If you know your enemy but don't know yourself, you fail. If you know yourself but don't know your enemy, you fail. The only way to be victorious, you have to know yourself and you have to know your enemy. In other words, you have to know who you are and what path you walk, but you also have to understand why these other paths are not. are not meant for you. I'm not even going to say it's not meant for the world. The world is going to be the world, but you have to have an understanding of why you should not be over there and why you should be over here. So you have to go a step further than just knowing who you are. You have to also know, okay, this is why I'm not over there and I'm over here, because I know exactly where that path leads, because you may have been down that path before, or you may have known someone who goes down that path, or you just use common sense to know that that's not the direction in which you want to go down, because you have foresight and you have insight coming from having the knowledge of self. Now, because we know, when you are working on your path, to level out your state of being, you have to walk a path in order to learn the rules and regulations of how to live. So, for example, it's not about everything all at once. Through the process of walking the path, you are gaining wisdom. So the more and more you walk the path, you're gathering insight, you're gathering data, you're gathering more and more wisdom so that you can equalize the playing field, so that the distractions no longer distract you, because you have walked the path long enough to know better. So it doesn't really phase you the way it may have phased you in the beginning of your path, where you're just kind of in between, like, the phase where you have to give up certain things, and certain things are not good. It's kind of a struggle at first, but if you keep with it, it no longer becomes a struggle. It's not that you're not going to struggle at all. You will have new and more greater hurdles to conquer. But we know that we have to do this in degrees, and that's what wisdom is. Wisdom is doing things in degrees so that you develop patterns in the subconscious that now you don't have to consciously think about, okay, I need to abstain from this, I need to go here, go there. At first it's like conscious decisions where you have to do this or do that. You have to constantly be making decisions. But when it becomes second nature, because you have been doing it long enough and you start to develop those subconscious patterns that allows you to not have to think about all of these things, because you have been walking the path for X amount of time, then you see where things change a little bit. Now you can think a little further. You can see a little further beyond your eyesight. You can see into the future, because you know how, when you understand the way things work, you can see into the future. You can make predictions because you know how things work. To have knowledge of self, it just means that you understand the cycles of the body. And if you understand the cycles of the body, you understand the cycles of the world. And if you understand the cycles of the world, you understand the cycles of the planet. And if you understand the cycles of the planet, you understand the cycles of the universe. Right? So when you understand all of the cycles, you can make predictions. Like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know when spring happens. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know when summer happens, because we have already plotted out the cycles. But there are certain unseen cycles that are not as obvious as the seasons or the days or the months, so on and so forth. So those unseen cycles that you really can't perceive with the eye, you have to perceive with the third eye, or the mental eye, the eye of foresight or insight, or being able to cast a prediction and be accurate, or fortune telling or divination, however you want to put it. These are where those arts are developed, because you understand the cycles of the universe, the cycles of yourself. And it's just you're reading cycles. The patterns of the universe is just cycles of the universe. So if you know the cycle, you can make a prediction, because things don't really change that often. An atom will always be an atom. That doesn't change, So going a step further, because when we are going through these waves, most of the time you're going to fall off at some point. Some point you're going to get distracted and you're going to go off left. But that's a part of the process, because when you gear off left and when you go off left, if it's truly within you, you will learn how to move yourself back in line, because you're going to be walking down that path and it's just not going to do the same things it used to do for you. For example, once you have given something up, see, in other words, let's just say when you was a kid, you were doing things that really didn't bother you because you didn't see anything wrong with it. But once you became mature and you're like, I can't really continue to do those same things I did in my childhood, or those same old habits I may have learned from my parents or learned from my community, learned from my culture that no longer serves me now. But it takes a wise person to know that, okay, it's time for me to break those old habits. Even if my family still do it, even if the mom and dad still do it, even if my friends and colleagues, even if they all still engage in that same wickedness and madness, I understand for me, it just doesn't do anything for me at this point. So once you gain the knowledge of self, the things that used to interest you, that gave you joy and all these things, it just doesn't do it for you anymore. So even if you veer off the path, you're going to end up coming right back because it doesn't have the same effect on you that it used to, because you can't forget the things that you learned and you can't undo the things that you have been through. So in other words, the wisdom of God made manifest in a person's personal understanding. In other words, what that means is we know that we all have to have a personal connection with the source. We have to have a personal connection. So even though there's an abundance of information out here, there's an abundance of knowledge, it's only when we develop our own personal understanding of things that we truly see the way or the path to the light, or the path to the dark, or the in-between path, depending on what you're trying to do. But the only way to really understand that is to observe the cycles of the universe. Once you have observed the cycles of the universe, or observe the cycles of yourself, now you are moving in that light, because now that you have observed, now you're going to act on those observations. And when you act on those observations, then you're going to be able to reflect on what you have actually interacted with. So as you say, you study something, then you engage in it. And when you engage in it, now you're able to reflect on what worked and what didn't work, and you're able to refine it, make it better, emphasize the things that do work. The things that don't work, put it to the side. The things that do work, But that's the wisdom of God. That's the wisdom of being able to come to your own personal conclusions. Because once again, it's an infinite abundance of knowledge out here, but it's the personal understanding that you gain by living that path out. And you start to see things for yourself. You start to develop an original understanding of things. Why? Because things could be different depending on what angle you view things from, right? Everything is different. If you view it from a 60-degree angle, you're going to have a different phase of light versus if you view it from a 30-degree angle, right? So this is getting into mathematics, geometry, sacred geometry, so on and so forth. Each, you can say, geometric image resonates with a certain frequency or a certain hertz. And that certain hertz is generated by a certain sound, right? Sound creates matter. So we can say that all day, but when you know that, because you are actually able to put a thought in your mind, or the heart center, I talked about the universal heart, when you were able to put a thought at your heart center and you were able to observe it come to life, that gives you an original understanding. Why? Because you put the thought inside of your heart center and you saw it materialize from the Genesis all the way to the Omega, which is the ending, the Alpha and the Omega. Because you are the Alpha and you are the Omega. You planted the seed and you nourished the seed, and the seed actually, became mature. And you was there from start, and you will be there in the finish of it. So your level of understanding, because you were there at the beginning and you will be there at the end, will be different than someone who just came about in the second phase or the third phase or the fourth phase. When you was there when nobody else cared, when it was just a seed and nobody even knew it was there, but you was there and you was putting your heart into it. And again, it may be a thought, an idea, or desire, an emotion, whatever it may be. You put your own energy and you spend time nurturing it. So when it actually becomes something massive, now everyone else is able to see it. It's the same thing with fame and fortune and all that. Like, nobody cares when you are struggling, but everybody cares, when they actually are able to see those tangible results, right? But when you was actually hustling and working hard and nobody else can see the vision that you saw, then of course everybody doubts you. But that's just the way humans work. They have to show me the money mentality. But because you went deeper than show me the money, you understand, like, okay, I got to plant the seed before the money actually comes to me. And I have to nurture the seed. And I have to stay with it. I have to give my energy to it. So when it becomes something great to the point where other people can observe it, Let them observe the glory and the greatness. I'm more satisfied with the process because I've been there from the start and I'm here when it's glorious. So you have the full understanding and you have a personal and intimate connection with the process because you have been there since the beginning and you have been there in the ending. So that personal understanding that's developed by having access to all this information and having access to all this knowledge is the only thing that's going to keep you shielded against all of these illusions. Again, there's an infinite amount of illusions that we can all get into at any given time that will destroy us from the inside out. Because that's the real thing. We are really destroyed by our emotions, not necessarily by our experiences. Like fear destroys you from the inside out. Weakness destroys you from the inside out. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily you have to get into a bad situation or dealing with a wrong type of person. It's the emotional realm that destroys us from the inside out. That's why you hear about people dying from broken hearts and so on and so forth. It's the emotional state. If your emotional state isn't tamed, if your emotional state isn't calm, then you can kill yourself. This is how people kill themselves. It's not just by negative thoughts, but those negative thoughts turns into negative emotions, and those negative emotions turns into sicknesses. Those sicknesses turns into disease, and the disease just starts to eat away at your body. But we know everything starts off mental. So before there's physical disease, there is the mental disease. The mental disease is the negative emotions. And again, I don't mean negative as in bad, because positive, negative, it's all neutral. Just things that are not graceful, right? Things that are not in accord with the source. Things that take you to the wrong area, internally as well as externally. Because I figured out, if I want to be completely honest here, and this will be the last thing before we check out, if I want to be completely honest, like the worst situations I've been in life is when I was inflicted. Meaning I had certain chemicals in my body that shouldn't have been there. Then when I think, I'm like, when I was in a purified state, when I was fasting or I was, just keep everything cool, keep everything pure. It may not have been like a full fast or just little things here, little things there, then everything was fine. All the problems I thought I had, just things started to dissolve on their own. It's like I didn't have to figure anything out. You see, when we are under the illusion where we have to figure everything out. You got to figure out how life works. You got to figure out how to pay your bills. You got to figure out how to get to the next week, the next month, how to keep these bills paid, how to keep the family in order, so on and so forth. Like figure it out, figure it out, figure it out. You got to be a problem solver. Solve this problem, solve this problem, solve this problem. However, when you are in a purified state, it seems like things solve themselves. And I am a true witness to this. It's like things, the shit that you just could not figure out, the shit just fucking evens itself out. It's like magic, but you got to put in that work. You got to make the sacrifice. You got to walk that path, which is only for the chosen few, because only the chosen few will even have the eyes to view that, to even make those connections. Like, okay, when I purify my internal chambers, the external evens itself out when I even myself out. It's not the other way around. Because again, we feel like, okay, I got to change my relationship, my situation, my job, the city I'm in, the country I'm in. None of that actually matters. It's not about where you at. It's not about who you with, who you not with. None of that is actually important if your internal chambers are not pure. But when your internal chambers are pure, you can be anywhere doing anything and things will actually even themselves out, because again, we manifest from the internal to the external, not the other way around. Like we have to get our shit together outside first, then we get our shit together inside. It don't work like that. Purify the inside and the outside will take care of itself. Because if you're trying to take care of the outside first, then that's when people start to get sick. You start to destroy your body. This is the people that work hard. I gotta, get that promotion at the job. I gotta, get that raise. They're just all about, work, labor, work. But the internal chambers are never purified because their diet may be a mess. Their thoughts may be a mess. The emotional realm may be a mess. Their desires is all over the place, so they can't fulfill their desires because they don't have enough energy. It's hard to fulfill your desires when you are not generating that amount of energy. So hopefully the point has been made here. Again, I'm not going to take up too much time. So This is why the path is only for the chosen few. The path of soul excellence is only for the chosen few, because they understand that things happen from the inside first. So you purify the inside, then the external reflects the internal, and not the other way around. So we'll leave it there. Y'all take it easy. Peace.